You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and John.
I have been diving into this, which I showed.
Yeah, you showed that on the thing. Yeah.
Oh man, I cannot recommend this company enough.
What else do they do?
Bitmap Books. They do a lot of video game historical stuff, and they're based in the UK. They put together these really beautiful hardcover books. There's one dedicated to NES games, Super Nintendo, Sega, Commodore. They throw all this stuff together and give like brief histories. They get interviews with people who were there on the front lines and who took part in developing games and producing them, and artists. And there's actually a book that just came out called The Art of the Book.
Yeah.
Or The Art of the Box.
Yeah.
So they compiled all these different artists into one book, and they're like, you know, here are some of the best box art pictures
like
around.
Yeah.
It's really cool stuff.
It's like half history, half art book kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to look at. I've got this one right here, and then the Guide to Japanese Role-Playing Games. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Just because it covers a lot of the games I used to play on different systems and stuff. So, and this one, I didn't own a lot of computer RPGs, but it was always one genre that really fascinated me. So this book is always really cool to look at.
Yeah, I didn't play a ton of computer RPGs. For the most part, the main thing I did was MUDs, which I guess you could count as a computer RPG, but it's kind of own category. But yeah, I never before. Baldur's Gate, Divinity: Original Sin. Before that, I haven't really played any of those kind of games, and I dabbled. Like a new game would come out, like Dragon Age would come out, and like, you know, I'd play it for like an hour and then kind of be bored with it. But yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 is like the one game that's really grabbed me.
So you're actually diving into that one, huh?
Yeah, 45 hours in right now. So yeah.
And so what would you describe it as? Is it isometric, kind of top down dungeon crawly? Or I don't really remember quite how the original Baldur's Gates were.
They were isometric. This is obviously modern, so it's 3D, but it is third person at that, like, you're at that isometric altitude, I'll say.
Okay.
So when you zoom in or whatever, you know, turn around or whatever, it's at that altitude. And then there's you can do tactical map, which is fully overhead if you need to really like pinpoint where you're going. But yeah, it's all like real time outside of combat, and then when you get into combat, it's turn based.
Wow. So does it feel like you're playing a TTRPG? Yeah,
I mean, I was playing so I have Matt and Devin from Nastygram, and Dante, who played in some of the Nastygram games. He has a stream, and we're playing a co-op game, and we're basically role playing the entire thing. We're role playing our characters, and you can you can just play D&D with it pretty much.
Wow, I'm this close to buying it, but I just know I'm going to lose the rest of my life.
How far are you in Final Fantasy? That's the question.
Yeah, I don't even think halfway yet. I've been dropping the ball on that one. Pissing me off. Yeah. All these things, man.
All the games.
I mean, it is fun. Yeah. It is fun. But my available time has dwindled considerably this past couple weeks.
I can feel that.
It is a mess right now. But the bright side is, on the opposite end of this, once I play this show and maybe one more, the learning of the songs should be at a minimum.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot faster.
I'll be over the hurdle of, okay, you need to learn 40 songs for one show.
Yeah.
So once I do it, then I'll be like, all right, we're good.
What was your percentage at the first show?
The first show?
Yeah.
Oh, I did pretty well. I would give myself, for wrong notes, if we're going to go with a garage band or Guitar Hero, I would say I was at like an 87%.
That's pretty good for 40 songs.
Only a couple here and there that didn't go well, but well, not songs, just notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there weren't like 3 songs where I just bombed.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, they were good until this song. Jesus Christ. No. Overall, it was a B. I'll give myself a B.
Nice.
Yeah. So Saturday's the next show, and then hopefully I'll be done with stressing about learning a bunch of songs. So, well,
yeah.
Now that we're talking about a bunch of crap, and randomly Guitar Hero, that's oddly appropriate. But we are going to talk about System Shock's soundtrack today.
Yeah.
And this is a soundtrack.
It is. I was curious on why you had chosen. Did you play System Shock back in the day?
I did not.
Yeah, me neither.
This is one of those soundtracks I chose because I know it is a beloved franchise, and I wanted to know why.
Yeah.
So I've never really delved into it, but the soundtrack was the first step for me, and it did not disappoint.
Yeah.
Have you played System Shock?
No, I never played it. It was probably one of those games that I think I would have liked, but I don't think I knew about it back in the day. I was back in the mid 90s. I was playing a lot of Quake and Quake Team Fortress and all that. So
yeah, this was the other end of that first person game.
Right.
It wasn't all action. It was more puzzle based and stuff like that. There were guns and you did fire them, but it was more bring this here, use this to unlock this kind of thing.
Right. It essentially was the progeny or the progenitor of a lot of what you get now in first person shooters. Even the ones that you would consider more actiony, they still have a lot of kind of that light RPG trapping to it. And I think a lot of that is traced back to System Shock.
Yeah. This game looked like it opened a lot of doors in what a first person could be like. I mean, there had been obviously, RPGs and old school computer games that were first person per se,
but like click and move or whatever.
Yeah, they were click and move, kind of take it one step at a time. This one, the action was a little bit more in your face, real time.
Yeah.
You had to think on your toes a little bit while you're solving puzzles and beating bad guys.
Right.
But that being said, the threatening situations aren't constant. Right. I don't believe so.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mystery and solving the puzzle. And it was a game that heavily relied on story narration and intrigue in the story, which I think was pretty unique at that time.
Yeah. It's set in a futuristic cyberpunk world, and you are a hacker that is recruited to take care of an out-of-control artificial intelligence. Not an unheard of story.
Yeah.
I think there are a handful of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a good jumping point for the game. You make your way through it in a very non-linear fashion. You solve puzzles. Again, take care of enemies as they come. You investigate your surroundings with your mouse, and you also shoot with it. So it's a very one or the other. You kind of think about what you're doing. It seems like it's a very involved game. Yeah, it was that next step for first person. The soundtrack is composed by Greg LoPiccolo, bassist of the band Tribe, if you've ever heard of them.
I think I've heard of them. I don't think I've heard them, though.
Yeah, they reached some fame, but they didn't really make the full jump into mainstream. And he used to be the senior project director at Harmonix, the creator of the first Guitar Hero.
It's all coming together.
And then he went on to helm the Rock Band games. So I just wanted to mention, I'm not going to dive into it or anything, but there's a wonderful interview with him, LoPiccolo, at soundoflife.com. And you can look it up. I believe the video is called Game Changing Greg LoPiccolo. He just talks for like 6 minutes. It's a short interview, his journey from traditional music into the world of video game music and his path through that. It's very cool, very fun to listen to, and he's extremely talented.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give that interview a little bit of a shout just because it's a quick rundown of who he is and what he's done. So And then I did also want to mention Tim Rees, who did the elevator theme on this soundtrack.
Right.
So
yeah, that definitely
didn't want to let him.
Definitely was a different track than the rest of them.
Yeah, it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah, I know.
Oh man. So tell me what you thought of the soundtrack. Any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it really encapsulated the kind of 90s era cyberpunk techno music theme scene. I don't think it necessarily breaks any like new ground, but for being from 1994, I feel like a lot of this techno cyberpunky music was pretty underground at the time. So in that sense, it was a, you know, it made a statement about what the game is going to be. It's a cyberpunk techno world.
Yeah, I was getting flashes of movies like I don't want to say The Matrix because obviously it's futuristic or whatever, but this, I actually, when you say underground, I do get flashes of movies like Blade or something, like where these songs might be playing in a club,
right,
where all the lights are down and they're just flashing just red everywhere.
Light, yeah.
I could definitely imagine some of these songs being in that situation. So, but yeah, I think just to start things off, the intro song, very important, very shrill to open the soundtrack. A lot of beeps, and it quickly changes to this rock beat.
Yeah.
You know, there's use of synthesizer here. It gives a very futuristic feel, while the choice of flute keeps the song frantic and intense.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I really like the way they use that, and the fast-paced drumming with a focus on hi-hat and bass really meshes well with the tone of the song. There's a lot of electronica, and it just feels very appropriate. Like you hear the song and you think, okay, this is a futuristic world. This is, you know, espionage, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it has this kind of industrial feel to it, industrial techno kind of feel to it. The flute, it's very like panicky, kind of keeping you going. And in the middle, you have that kind of neat little breakdown. And I mean, overall, it's a really solid track for an intro. I mean, this is the opening salvo of the game. It kind of gives you that sense that this is going to be a fast paced, kind of racing the clock kind of adventure. Like you're going to be in danger, and you're going to be in the shit for the duration.
And you get a real big hint that this game is going to have a lot of, I don't know, it just strikes me as spycraft, a lot of jumping through vents and crawling and making your way through the place. Whether or not that's true and what happens, I don't know for sure, but that's just what I get from it. So I think it captures the idea of the cyberpunk aesthetic pretty well. Yeah,
I would agree. And the alarm sounding, it does bring you into that, because the story is obviously where you wake up in the middle of this space station where the AI is taking over. You can feel that, like, oh, I just woke up into this like shitstorm.
This is going to be hell.
Yeah, everything, all the alarms, all the red lights are going off, all the klaxons are going off.
Yeah, if ever there was a progenitor of, to use your word, of Portal and GLaDOS, oh boy.
Yeah, for sure.
Killer AIs on the loose.
Yep. Yeah, and I think another track that really encapsulates the theme is Cyberspace. That really, that, like, more than a lot of the other tracks, brings me back to that 90s era techno. I loved that kind of music back in the day. I tried to make techno music when I was in middle school, probably failed. I think there's a floppy drive in my basement that has that that track on there somewhere.
That's our next episode.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll buy a. I had a floppy USB thing, but anyways, but yeah, it just sounds like you're ripping across these like ones and zeros in this like VR hacking like mind space. Yeah. You have that
Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah, the fast like da 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 da. It kind of is like teletype, that feel to it. So it's just classic techno. It's great.
And that intro with that really arpeggiated synthesizer in the beginning, I really like that. Fluttering up and down the scale. It just captures that mood.
Yeah.
And yeah, it devolves into a really simple drum beat with like a subdued background synth. And then there's this lead section where the keys take over and provide that signature electronic feel. Yeah. So there's a real urgency to the song, and there are a lot of changes in instruments and tone, but the pace never really dwindles. And I think that's important. You always feel like it's a classic B action movie.
Right.
And it's really cool. There's a chase scene in the movie right now.
Yeah.
I think
but it's a chase scene in cyberspace for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and each change of instrument is just a different moment of the chase.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, very fun song. And then that leads me to End. I think it's just called End.
End Remix is the two.
Yeah. This one's a little darker. Strained strings tell the story, you're dead, pretty much. So it comes to a squealing synth and another killer drum beat. And then that flute grabs the listener and takes them along on a wild ride as the synth accents with high-pitched keys. It's just a little bit of a retread of the intro.
Yeah.
But not quite. It is a little different. But, this is telling the end of your story. Something terrible has just happened. So
yeah, you can sense that sinister note to it, especially at the beginning of it. And I feel like it picks up in the middle because you're making that decision to go back to your old save. So it's kind of ramping you back up to get back in there. And
almost like there's a time limit.
Yeah. Continue in 10.
No.
But it is a bit of a retread of the intro. But yeah, like you said, it does. It provides that feeling of this is you just died and you got to figure something out. The little remix goes on for a little bit longer.
Yeah, about a minute or two longer.
So yeah, I don't know where in the game why there's a different end and end remix. Maybe there's a different kind of ending that you get.
You super died.
But it's kind of neat. You get that. You get a little bit of a extended version of end there.
Yeah.
With a little bit more variation in that intro. It actually kind of builds on that intro theme more than the end theme because towards the end of it, you're adding more instruments and stuff like that to it. So
yeah,
it's kind of neat.
It's a little bit of a wild ride here. It's amazing that in a situation where you find yourself dead, they can still entertain you quite. Yeah. Well, I died. but this,
Yeah, it's not so
I
bad.
enjoy it. It's not so bad.
One of the one of the best tracks for me in this was Energy S Eng Flight Deck. I assume that's 3 different areas or something.
Yeah.
But man, it's just a grungy industrial techno track that is just up my alley.
Yeah.
Whatever, what would it be? 10-year-old me? 10-year-old me? Well, maybe not 10-year-old me. But probably like 13-year-old me would have been really down with this. It has a like warbly ghost noises that are going on alongside the engineering part, I imagine, where these like gears and steam vents and things are going off, even though it's like a super advanced space station. But it kind of sounds like this, retro futurism kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, it has like this. You've got alarms going off. You've got something that could be construed as a drill. Mm-hmm. It's like the futuristic cyberpunk version of Pee-wee's Playhouse. That's all I can.
Yeah.
It's just a strange song, but it really does trudge along with that guitar and that kick drum.
Yeah.
It's a very bold and direct song. You are tapping your foot while you're listening to this song. It just has a real good groove to it. And towards the back half, we get a wonderful synth progression that just kind of repeats itself in an upward momentum. It adds a new layer to the track without taking away any of the intensity. And at the end, we get a slightly more crushing guitar gallop that culminates in snare hits, and the song ends. It's a groovy track.
Yeah, it's really groovy.
It fits the album by being a little bit different. Mm-hmm. It still captures that cyberpunk aesthetic. And like you said, it's kind of like a hangar bay or something. It has its place on this album, but it is definitely a standout track by being a little bit different.
Yeah, imagine you're going through some sort of engineering or flight deck that is just awash with people that are going back and forth, doing different tasks, drilling on a spaceship or flights coming in and out. It's very busy song. It almost, those one-man band things where like they're pulling on a chord and it's hitting like a drum or whatever. It feels like this. It's like that kind of, but yeah, but in a cool way, I guess. I don't know.
In a cool way, absolutely.
Yeah.
The next song I wanted to mention was Executive.
That sounds like a good one. Yeah.
This strikes me as a very. I think he nailed this song. The general melody of this song just strikes me as a bunch of suits, upper level management, just walking around this pristine futuristic office or something.
Yeah.
They have to be the bad guys, right? This song has just a cool confidence behind it. It feels a bit more luxurious than the others. It feels like this is the song of your enemy, and they're living in this fantasy world of, again, that luxury. It's a great track that really takes the soundtrack to a different level. And there's a beautiful melody in here. And when you think you know where the song's going, it stops off for a subdued and contemplative interlude, complete with, yes, another flute solo.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's kind of interesting that it's almost a pan flute solo.
Mm-hmm.
And it is interesting in this very industrial techno soundtrack for a game that is about futuristic AI programs running amok. The flute is pretty heavily used, and
instrument
it's not
of the day. It's not bad. It works.
Yeah.
It really does.
And like you said, this is like this a dystopian future, this dystopian cyberpunk future where corporations control everything, and these suits are the literal bad guys. Capitalism has won, and this is the result. And
yes,
it's a weird luxury, like it's a luxury that is not earned kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm seeing white rooms with green plants and window walls all over the place, and they're just watching the city below.
Yep.
Drinking tea.
The last one I kind of wanted to talk about was Beta Groove. It's not the most complex song in this, but it just has this great driving beat to it that is similar to the feeling that this track has, or this album has, where you're being chased.
Yeah.
And this is like whereas cyberspace is the virtual chasing, this is the one in real life where you're running for your life through the corridors of the space station.
Yeah.
You get that feeling of tension as the really high synth plays on your heartstrings as you're going between every corner, hoping to lose the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, it's not a very intense or complex song. I think we get back to that fast-paced action of the early soundtrack here. This song is towards the final third of the album, and the synth is really flitting about and creating just a track that registers on the high end. It grabs the listener and just builds that tension.
Yeah.
You're hiding around a corner. Your captors are chasing you, and they're 10 steps behind you. You just got to do anything you can do to get away from them. So I think Beta Grove really, really works.
It's interesting that this soundtrack is only 38 minutes long for a game that I would imagine is longer than that. So there either is a lot of, and there's a couple songs in here that are ambients or have that feeling of an ambient track that maybe gets played over and over again. But there either a lot of these tracks are replayed, which I can see because they're fairly similar beginning and end. So I can see them just playing them over again. But yeah, I'm curious of how this gets filled out in the game in total.
Yeah, I would imagine, and again, we haven't played this, so we're just guessing, but I would imagine it's probably like a traditional FPS game of the time where there are areas, and because there are so few tracks on this, it will be like, okay, well, you're in the maintenance area now, so you're going to hear this song. You're in the flight deck, you're going to hear this song, or you're in the elevator as the Tim Rees song comes on. And so I would imagine it's relegated to that. Depending on how long the sections are, it may or may not get annoying to hear the songs on repeat. They're not particularly long songs, but for the most part, I think it's a great listen. This soundtrack definitely adds to the gameplay. I watched a long play of it, and it looks fun.
Yeah,
it looks very fun. So give me some final thoughts.
Yeah, I think this is a soundtrack that really did kind of bring me back to when I was in middle school or high school, listening to that mid 90s, late 90s techno. And for a game that it's a game that I've always wanted to play and thought I should play because it's kind of one of the classic, also hacker game, that kind of thing. I kind of regret that I haven't played it, and maybe I'll find a way to play the original. But for the soundtrack itself, it does put you in that mood of I could see playing this during like a cyberpunk game, role playing, because it does have that, has enough interest that it's a good track, but it can sit behind what you're doing pretty well as a kind of a mood, like a baseline mood.
Right.
And I think it does that really well. There are some albums that either are really good at ambience, but they don't have a lot of songs, like Quake, or there are ones that are very strong when it comes to their songs, and they sound more like songs, and they're a lot more forward than others. This, I think, is a lot of a middle ground where you get both.
Yeah, I think it's a very punchy record. And for the time, I think it took first-person adventure games and breathed new life into the genre, not just in gameplay from what I've seen, but in music as well. And LoPiccolo really understood the source material and used his abilities in playing in actual bands to kind of play with that and, what the future might sound like. He uses a lot of electronica, noises, fast beats to keep the game really interesting and exciting. But he doesn't really shy from using a couple chill tunes to create that breathing room that we might need. Despite their calmer nature, though, they still maintain the feel of the game, and that's always important. So, pretty good record here.
Yeah.
As we do, you can find Greg LoPiccolo at tonestone.com.
Tonestone.
That's his website. TONESTONE.com. And he's working on making music creation. I love this. He's working on making music creation better and more accessible for people going forward.
Okay.
So he's putting his efforts as a video game composer and composer in general just to make software and tools that will make it more accessible for people to do what he does. And I think that's really cool.
Well, that definitely shows in like stuff like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, where you want people to get into music, and one of the ways to get into music is to fake it until you make it. Until you buy a guitar, and then like, okay, I guess I'm in this now.
I mean, you could not find a house without that stuff.
Yeah.
So just the innovation that he kind of championed for those games, I think it's very important, and it shows his character as to his dedication to making things accessible. He wants this to be a future for people, and I totally respect that because I at one time wanted this to be my future. So we'll talk later as to whether or not that happened.
I mean, you're getting there.
I'm getting there. And then, of course, you can find Tim Rees, the composer of the elevator theme, at timrees.com, TIMRIES.com. And Limited Run Games did have a vinyl soundtrack a while ago that they released, but it is sold out.
Alas.
You can find it on third-party websites to buy, but expect to pay a little bit more because, as sharks will do,
they buy them
they'll
all
mark it up because it's System Shock and because everyone wants it. So you can stream it several places online. So we do suggest finding the soundtrack somehow, at least to listen to it. Or if you want to pay someone, again, on eBay, a ridiculous price, you're more than welcome to do that. I will give this a 9 out of 10 military-grade neuro interfaces.
That's a lot of neuro interfaces. I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It definitely hit me in the nostalgia bone. But yeah, 8 out of 10. What was I going to say? Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I'll definitely give it an 8 out of 10 Ghost in the Machine because it was really good.
Awesome. Well, that is the episode today. Thank you very much for listening. And John, if you would like to say goodbye, please do so.
I'll see you in the Cyberverse.
In the Cyberverse.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me. Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple. We
certainly did not.
Try again. Scratch that.
Check it out. Look it up.
John.
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, you like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say, we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.